the Grand Army of the Republic was the foundation of the Galactic Empire, the template upon which the Imperial Stormtrooper Corps was based. Though the clone troopers who served in it are often depicted as heroes in Clone Wars era media, they served a corrupt government that was waging a war of conquest against rightfully disaffected systems, as we've discussed in many videos in the past. For some clones, the signs were always there. The likes of Commander Fey were pretty evil even before the Republic officially became the Empire. But what about the larger clone units? In this video, we're going to be comparing 6 of the most well-known clone units, ranking them from most to least evil.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
Let's start at the bottom, where we have the Galactic Marines, the most evil of the more well-known clone units. Led by General Ki-Adi-Mundi and Commander Bacara, the Galactic Marines, officially the 21st Nova Corps, were an elite unit that specialized in fighting the Clone Wars' worst battles. Their most notable engagements were the Battle of Magneto, in which they ended the longest slog of the entire war, and the Battle of New Bornolix, during which, on Commander Bakara's command, they went hand to hand with a column of advancing super battle droids and won. Commander Bakara embodied his entire unit. He was a total hard-ass who cared only about victory and was intolerant of imperfection, readily rotating his men out of his unit if they failed to meet his exacting standards. He was also, as we've discussed in the past, a steadfast legalist. His trainer on Kamino had been a lawman on Conquered Dawn, and he had trained Bakara to see himself not just as a soldier, but as a lawman as well. As for why that's a bad thing, we can put it no better than Commander Adama of the Battlestar Galactica did.
There's a reason why you separate military and the police. One fights the enemy of the state, the other serves and protects the people. When the military becomes both, then the enemies of the state tend to become the people.
Bakara was a man who was unquestioningly loyal to a republic that was rapidly becoming a brutal police state, and he and his Galactic Marines had already adopted the mentality of Imperial Stormtroopers. They were willing to tolerate anything the Republic did, no matter how brutal, which makes them an easy pick for the most evil spot on this list. The second to worst unit is much less obvious, the 501st Legion. The 501st needs no introduction, being the most well-known clone unit, commanded first by Captain Rex and later by Commander Appo in tandem with Anakin Skywalker. Many fans of Star Wars The Clone Wars know the 501st Legion as a unit of heroes and free thinkers, but other Star Wars media paints a different and much more revealing picture. In-universe, the unit was known not for its service during the Clone Wars, but for the role it played during the reign of the Galactic Empire. The 501st was known to the galaxy as Vader's Fist, and for good reason. The unit was well known for its ruthlessness. The 501st wasn't nearly that bad during the Clone Wars, of course, but especially during the second half of the conflict, it was starting to get that way. If you've played the original Battlefront 2, you know that, at the end of the Clone Wars, the 501st was carrying out secret missions for Supreme Chancellor Palpatine himself during the Outer Rim sieges. The 501st was utterly loyal to the soon-to-be Emperor, and they played a major role in the establishment of the Empire, securing power crystals for the Death Star and carrying out Operation Nightfall, which destroyed the Jedi Order. These late war missions showed that even before the age of the Empire, the 501st had a vicious streak, which is why they rank so low on this list. Moving on, we have the 41st Elite Corps, which, despite its name, was actually a brigade. The 41st was led by Commander Gree and Illuminara Unduli, and they specialized in working with local allies due to Gree's fascination with and extensive knowledge of non-human cultures. They were often employed to train loyalist militias to fight the CIS on the Republic's behalf, a job they were quite good at. Commander Gree himself wasn't the problem with the 501st. What lands his unit in the lower half of his list is the attitudes of many of his men and the context of their missions. For one, a lot of the 41st seems to have disliked, or at least held negative stereotypes about many of the alien species they worked with. Most of them regarded the Wookiees, for instance, as quote-unquote savages, and many of the commanders, including Commander Gett and Gree himself, were big fans of the writings of a certain Admiral Tarkin, who was a virulent humanocentrist. Additionally, the role the 41st played in the Clone Wars was a bit sketchy. Their job was often to manipulate neutral or non-committedly loyalist peoples into fighting a war for them, often against their own governments. They were regime change specialists, which is a fairly evil thing to be, generally speaking. Slightly higher on the list, we have the 327th Star Corps, led by Commander Bly and Ayla Secura. The 327th was usually assigned to a similar mission profile as the 41st. They also specialized in extremely alien worlds, usually those with unique environmental hazards. Unlike the 41st though, they usually didn't work with the locals, instead specializing in long-term warfare in unconventional environments. Unlike the other units we've discussed so far, the 327th wasn't really overtly evil in any particular way, but they're just below the neutral line because of the role they played in the galactic context. They spread Republic control, soon to be Imperial control, to obscure worlds that were neither part of the Republic nor wanted to be most of the time. This led the 327th into open conflict with the natives sometimes, as happened on Honaga, though specific examples of this are few. Nonetheless, the 327th played a more significant role than most clone units in establishing the Empire, and we believe that merits special attention. Next up, we're moving to the second to best unit on this list, the 91st Reconnaissance Corps. Commanded initially by Commander Pons and later by Commander Neo, the 91st did exactly what its name would suggest. Its role in the Clone Wars was probably the least important of the 6 units on this list, but we've nonetheless included them due to their role in the Battle of Ryloth, a conflict in which the Republic was genuinely on the right side. In this battle, the 91st worked with and fought alongside local Twi'lek resistance fighters, but unlike the 41st Elite Corps, they were neither leading them against their own people nor looking down on them as inferiors. The men of the 91st actually respected their Twi'lek comrades, and while it's a small gesture, it puts them ever so slightly ahead of your average clone unit in the morality rankings. It certainly puts them ahead of the Tarkin-loving chauvinists in the 41st. Lastly, we have the most moral of the major clone units, the 212th Attack Battalion, or really the 7th Sky Corps as a whole. Led by Commander Cody and the esteemed General Kenobi, the 212th tops this list because they not only didn't do anything particularly awful, apart from fighting for the Republic, but they also did a decent bit of good. Consider again the Battle of Ryloth, in which the 212th's Ghost Company went out of their way to rescue Twi'lek civilians being used as living shields, deliberately drawing fire from Separatist tanks to cover the Twi'lek's escape. The 212th was also notable for its role in fighting the Zygerians when they became involved in the Clone Wars, yet another count of this unit going out of their way to help enslaved people. Now, we're not terribly big fans of the Republic, in case you couldn't tell, and in our opinion, there isn't a unit in the Republic military that was actually good, as they all had culpability for the rise of the Galactic Empire. But the 212th went out of their way to do some good things now and again, and that at least earns them some points in our book. So those are our rankings of the most well-known clone units, from least moral to most moral. But what do you think? Would you rank any of these units differently? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below. As always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.